I'm Carita, 32 years old, and I built my $7 million ranch from nothing but determination and grit. What should have been a joyful Christmas season turned into a nightmare when my parents called to say I wasn't welcome at their celebration this year. Everyone else in the family was invited except me. That rejection sparked something inside me. I decided to host my own Christmas at my ranch and invited absolutely everyone. What happened next shocked even me. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're viewing from, hit that like button and subscribe to see how I turned family rejection into the most unforgettable Christmas celebration ever. Growing up in my family wasn't easy. My parents, Thomas and Margaret, had incredibly high expectations for everything I did. From the moment I could walk, they had my life planned out perfectly. Every grade, every extracurricular activity, every social connection was scrutinized and judged. Nothing I did ever seemed quite good enough. Querida, a B+ is practically a C in the real world, my father would say, barely looking up from his newspaper when I proudly showed him my report card. My mother would simply purse her lips and ask why Jennifer from down the street always managed to get straight A's. My brother Jackson, 4 years older, had followed the family path perfectly. Pre-law, then Harvard Law School, then a prestigious firm in the city. I was supposed to follow the exact same trajectory. The problem was, I had absolutely no interest in becoming a lawyer. The family fights when I declared my business major were legendary. My mother didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. Business? What kind of serious career is that for someone with your potential? My father had demanded. You'll end up working in some strip mall selling cell phone cases. Despite their disapproval, I pushed forward. While studying business administration, I worked 3 jobs simultaneously. Mornings at a coffee shop, evenings waiting tables, and weekends doing bookkeeping for a local landscaper. Every dollar I earned went straight into my savings account. My parents saw my multiple jobs as proof I was struggling. "See what happens when you don't listen," became their favorite phrase. What they didn't realize was that I had a plan. Every exhausting double shift brought me closer to my dream. By 26, I had saved nearly $200,000. That's when I discovered Sunset Ridge, an abandoned 80-acre ranch about an hour outside the city. The property was in foreclosure, the buildings dilapidated, and the previous owners had left it in shambles. But standing on that overgrown driveway, looking out at the rolling hills and the way the sun painted the landscape at dusk, I knew I'd found something special. My real estate agent thought I was insane. My parents were convinced I was having some kind of breakdown. "You're throwing away your entire savings on a pile of dirt and rotting wood," my father said when I showed him the property listing. But I saw potential where they saw ruin. I secured a small business loan, leveraged my savings, and took the biggest risk of my life. The first 6 months were brutal. I lived in the only habitable room of the main house, showered with a garden hose, and worked from sunrise until I collapsed from exhaustion each night. Slowly, Sunset Ridge transformed. I renovated the main house first, then the stables. I hired local craftsmen to rebuild the barn into an event space with soaring ceilings and massive windows that captured the spectacular sunsets that had given the ranch its name. Within 3 years, Sunset Ridge was hosting weddings, corporate retreats, and luxury weekend getaways. I added a small herd of horses offering trail rides and riding lessons. By year 4, the ranch was valued at over $3 million. Today, 6 years after that terrifying purchase, Sunset Ridge Ranch is worth over $7 million with bookings solid for the next 18 months. Through all of this growth, my parents remained unimpressed. "Playing with horses isn't a career," my mother sniffed when I tried to explain our corporate team-building programs. My father still introduced me at family gatherings as my daughter who runs that camp thing outside town. No matter what milestones the ranch reached, no matter how many magazine features or business awards came my way in their eyes, I had strayed from the path of true success. Jackson's law career remained the gold standard against which my achievements would always fall short. I had built financial independence and a business I was proud of, but the emotional distance between my family and me had only grown wider with each passing year. Christmas had always been sacred in our family despite the tensions. Every year since I could remember, December 25th was spent at my parents' home for their annual Christmas dinner. It was the one time of year when family politics were temporarily set aside, when my father carved the turkey with ceremonial precision and my mother displayed her heirloom china and crystal glasses. Even after all the disagreements and disappointments, I looked forward to this one day of relative peace. Last year had actually been pleasant. My father had asked genuine questions about the ranch, and my mother had complimented the gifts I'd brought. I dared to hope that maybe finally they were beginning to accept my choices. So when my phone rang 3 weeks before Christmas and I saw my mother's number, I answered with genuine warmth. "Hi, Mom. I was just about to call you. I found the perfect wine to bring for Christmas dinner this year." The pause on the other end of the line should have warned me. "About Christmas, querida. That's why I'm calling." Her voice had that particular tone she used when delivering unpleasant news. My stomach instantly knotted. "Jackson's fiancée Amelia has quite a large family," she continued, her words careful and measured. "They're all coming to meet us properly before the wedding, and they'll be joining us for Christmas this year." "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for my brother. "It'll be nice to get to know them better." Another pause. "The thing is, with Amelia's parents, her 3 siblings, their spouses, and the grandparents, we simply don't have room for everyone this year." I waited for the alternative suggestion. Perhaps Christmas Eve instead, or brunch on the 26th. The silence stretched. "Mom, so when should I come instead?" "Well, that's the difficult part. We thought since you're so independent and busy with the ranch, perhaps this year you could make other arrangements. Just this once." The realization hit like a physical blow. "You're uninviting me from Christmas." "Don't be dramatic, querida. We're not uninviting you. We simply have space constraints this year. You understand." I gripped the phone tighter. "Who else isn't coming? Is Aunt Sarah being excluded too? Cousin Michael?" My mother's sigh told me everything before she spoke. "Everyone else was able to accommodate. It's just with your situation living so far out, we thought—" "My situation? You mean my successful business that pays for my house and my life? That situation? This attitude is exactly why these arrangements get so complicated," she replied, her voice cooling. "Jackson and Amelia need this time with both families together. Surely you can understand that." After hanging up, I called my brother. Jackson at least had the decency to sound uncomfortable. "I tried to talk them into moving it to a restaurant or something," he said. "But you know how Mom is about her Christmas traditions." "John." "Traditions that now apparently don't include me. It's just this one-year cue. Amelia's family is really important to make a good impression on. Her dad is a district court judge. Of course, a judge. The perfect addition to our family of legal eagles. So because her family has the right profession, they get priority over actual family." Jackson's silence told me he recognized the unfairness, but wouldn't stand against our parents. "Look, Amelia and I will come visit you after New Year's, I promise. I actually want to show her the ranch. She loves horses." My best friend Ashley witnessed the aftermath when she came over that evening. She found me surrounded by photo albums, tears streaming down my face. "They invited everyone else," I kept repeating. "Distant cousins we see once a decade, Dad's weird colleague from the university, even Jackson's ex-girlfriend's parents, who they've stayed friends with. Everyone except me." The rejection triggered memories of every other exclusion, my parents forgetting to attend my business school graduation because of a conflict with one of Jackson's law review dinners. The family vacation photos where I was absent because I chose to work instead of join them. The way family news always reached me last. "I've built all of this." I gestured around at my beautiful home, the ranch visible through the windows, "and it's still not enough to earn my place at their table." Ashley held me as I sobbed, the weight of never being good enough crushing down despite all my objective success. "Christmas is in 3 weeks, she said softly, "and you're sitting here in a $7 million ranch crying because you can't go to their cramped house and eat dry turkey while your mom criticizes your hair and your dad ignores you." Put that way, it did seem absurd. But the hurt was still raw, still bleeding. That night I went to bed early, emotionally exhausted, and dreading the thought of spending Christmas alone. The next morning I woke up with swollen eyes and a strange sense of calm. I stood on my back porch watching the sun rise over my land horses already grazing in the misty fields. This beautiful place existed because I had the courage to defy expectations and follow my own path. During our morning coffee, Ashley brought up an idea that initially seemed crazy. So why not host your own Christmas here? This place is literally designed for events. Christmas is in 3 weeks, I reminded her. All my staff has approved time off. I couldn't possibly organize something that fast. Why not? You've pulled together corporate events with less notice, and it's not like you're inviting hundreds of people. The thought lodged in my mind and wouldn't leave. My ranch with its soaring ceilings in the main hall, the stone fireplaces, the twinkling lights we kept strung in the old oak trees year-round, it would make a magical Christmas setting. I could invite Aunt Carol and Uncle Jim, I mused aloud. They always complain about being cramped at Mom's house. And your cousins from your dad's side who bring those amazing tamales every year. And my staff, I added, warming to the idea. Most of them don't have family nearby. By midday, the plan had expanded. If I was hosting Christmas, why not make it extraordinary? Why not create the warm, welcoming holiday I'd always wished for but never quite experienced at my parents' formal tense gatherings? I remembered the local family shelter where I volunteered occasionally. So many families had nowhere special to go for the holidays. The ranch could easily accommodate them too. Excitement building, I sat at my computer and designed a beautiful digital invitation. Elegant but warm, featuring a photo of the ranch's main hall decorated for last year's winter solstice corporate event with its 20-foot Christmas tree and garlands of evergreen and twinkling lights. You are cordially invited, I typed, to the first annual Christmas celebration at Sunset Ridge Ranch. First annual. The words gave me a surge of satisfaction. This wouldn't be a one-time act of defiance. This could be the beginning of a new tradition, one where everyone was truly welcome. I included all the details: Christmas Eve dinner and overnight accommodations for those who wish to stay, Christmas morning brunch, afternoon activities, and a formal Christmas dinner. I made it clear that all expenses were covered, my gift to them. For the shelter families, I called directly and arranged private transportation. Each family would have their own guest room in the ranch's luxury cabins. I coordinated with a local toy drive to ensure every child would have gifts waiting on Christmas morning. As I hovered over the send button on that first batch of invitations to family and friends, I felt a rush of empowerment. No more waiting for scraps of approval. I was creating my own celebration on my own terms. The first response came 3 minutes after I hit send. My cousin Michael. Hell yes. Tammy and I are so in. Can we come Christmas Eve and stay overnight? Also, can I bring my famous eggnog? Within an hour, my phone was constantly buzzing with enthusiastic acceptances. By evening, I had to start a spreadsheet to keep track of the growing guest list. The bitter rejection of the previous day was transforming into something unexpected anticipation. The first call from my parents came exactly 47 minutes after I sent the invitations. I knew because I was staring at my phone when their number appeared, mentally preparing myself for this inevitable conversation. What exactly do you think you're doing? My father demanded without preamble. Hosting Christmas, I replied calmly. Since I'm not welcome at your celebration. Your Aunt Carol just called your mother to ask if she should bring her sweet potato casserole to your house or ours. Do you have any idea how awkward that was? I could hear my mother in the background, her voice tight with frustration. Put her on speakerphone, Thomas. Querida. My mother's voice came through clearly now. This is extremely inappropriate. You're deliberately creating a conflict for the entire family. I'm not creating conflict. I'm offering an alternative celebration for anyone who wants to attend. Everyone is still welcome at your house according to your invitation. You know very well people can't be in 2 places at once, my father interjected. This is nothing but a tantrum because you can't have your way. The old familiar feeling of inadequacy threatened to surface, but I pushed it back. I'm a 32-year-old business owner hosting a holiday event at my property. That's hardly a tantrum. Well, my mother said after a moment, her voice shifting to a softer tone. Perhaps we were too hasty in our Christmas arrangements. Of course, you're welcome to join us. We'll make it work. The sudden reversal was so transparent I almost laughed. Thank you, but I've already begun organizing my event. You enjoy your Christmas with Jackson and Amelia's family. After more protests and thinly veiled accusations, the call ended with my mother saying, "We'll discuss this further when you've calmed down." Jackson called next. "Q, what are you doing? Mom's having a meltdown." "I'm hosting Christmas, Jay. Nothing dramatic." "Amelia saw your invitation. Now she's asking if we can go to your ranch instead. She keeps talking about how beautiful it looks." That made me smile despite myself. "She's welcome to come. You both are. You know I can't do that to Mom and Dad. But maybe we could stop by in the afternoon. Amelia really wants to see the place." It was a small olive branch, and I decided to accept it. Of course, I'd love to meet her properly. The calls and messages continued pouring in throughout the day. My father's sister, Aunt Josephine, immediately accepted along with her entire family. "Your mother's house is always so stuffy at Christmas," she confided. "And the kids have to sit perfectly still, or she gets that look on her face." My college roommate, Lisa, who normally spent Christmas working because she couldn't afford to fly home, eagerly accepted. "Are you serious? Christmas at a luxury ranch, I'm so there." Business associates, neighbors, ranch employees, and their families' friends from every stage of my life all responded with enthusiasm. The guest list grew to 30, then 50, then nearly 80 people. As I worked to expand the scope of the celebration, ordering additional tables, coordinating with caterers, and planning activities. A local reporter who had covered the ranch's business success in the past caught wind of the event, particularly the inclusion of the shelter families. She called requesting an interview about the Community Christmas Initiative. That's when I realized this had grown beyond a personal alternative to my family's rejection. This was becoming something meaningful for many people who, for various reasons, needed a place to belong during the holidays. I looked at the caller ID on my constantly ringing phone. My mother again, the third call today. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever she had to say could wait. I had a celebration to plan. The week before Christmas transformed Sunset Ridge Ranch into a winter wonderland. Every building gleamed with twinkling lights. The main event hall housed a magnificent 20-foot blue spruce decorated with hundreds of ornaments in silver and gold. Garlands of evergreen wrapped every banister and mantelpiece, filling the air with the scent of Christmas. Staff and volunteers worked tirelessly. The caterers planned an extravagant menu for both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Local musicians were scheduled for live performances. A professional photographer would capture the entire celebration. Every detail was considered, from personalized stockings for each guest to custom welcome baskets in each room. 3 days before Christmas, a news crew arrived to film a segment about the event, focusing on the families from the shelter who would be attending. Standing in front of the magnificently decorated main house for the interview, I explained the inclusive vision behind the celebration. "Christmas should be about togetherness and belonging," I told the reporter. "Sunset Ridge has always been a place where people connect with nature and each other. Extending that to the holidays just feels natural." The segment aired that evening on the local news and was picked up by several regional stations. By the next morning, I had received calls from 2 additional shelters asking if they could bring families. Despite the logistical challenges of adding more guests so late, I couldn't say no. In the midst of the growing excitement and endless preparations, my parents' attempts to regain control intensified. My mother called daily, alternating between trying to make me feel guilty and attempting to insert herself into the planning. "If you insist on doing this, at least let me help with the decorations," she said during one call. "I've seen your previous attempts at holiday decor, and they're a bit unrefined." My father took a different approach. "Your mother is very upset about all this, querida." Is that what you wanted, to ruin her Christmas? The old tactics that had always worked to make me second-guess myself now bounced off my growing confidence. "The decorations are already complete, Mom, but thanks for offering." And, "I'm not responsible for your emotions, Dad. I've simply made other plans after being told I wasn't welcome." Jackson continued to be caught in the middle, calling almost daily with updates on the family drama. "Mom's telling everyone you're trying to steal Christmas," he reported with a sigh. "Dad's pretending to be above it all but keeps making these passive-aggressive comments about ungrateful children." 2 days before Christmas, Jackson called again. "We're coming to your celebration," he said without preamble. "What, both of you?" I was genuinely surprised. "Yeah." Amelia put her foot down, said she wasn't spending her first Christmas with our family in the middle of this ridiculous drama. She thinks what you're doing for those shelter families is amazing. Plus, she really wants to see this famous ranch. A weight I hadn't realized I was carrying lifted slightly. "I'm looking forward to meeting her. Also," he added hesitantly, "Mom and Dad might show up too." My stomach tightened. "Might? They officially declined your invitation pretty rudely, I know, but I think they're realizing how many people chose your celebration over theirs. Mom's pretending she might stop by briefly to say hello to Josephine, since Aunt Jo chose your place." The prospect of my parents attending filled me with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to exclude them as they had excluded me. Another part desperately wanted their approval of what I had created. The night before Christmas Eve, standing alone in the magnificently decorated main hall, after all the workers had gone home, I questioned my motives. Had I created this entire event just to prove something to my parents? Was I still that little girl desperately seeking their approval? Looking around at the beauty surrounding me, the carefully planned details meant to make every guest feel special and welcomed, I realized the truth. This celebration had begun as a reaction, but it had transformed into something authentic and meaningful. Whatever happened with my parents tomorrow, I had created something valuable not just for myself, but for everyone who would share in it. Christmas Eve dawned clear and cold, with just enough snow dusting the ground to complete the picture-perfect holiday scene. By midday, the ranch hummed with activity as the first guests began to arrive. The families from the shelters were scheduled to arrive first, giving them time to settle in before the larger celebration began. I greeted each family personally at the entrance to their private cabins where Christmas trees waited with presents already arranged underneath. The children's faces as they explored their accommodations made every minute of planning worthwhile. One little boy, about 7 years old, looked up at me with wide eyes and asked, "Is this a castle, miss?" "For the next 2 days, it's your castle," I told him, my heart full. By 5 o'clock, the main event hall buzzed with conversation and laughter. Aunt Josephine hugged me fiercely when she arrived. "This is magnificent, querida. Absolutely magical." My college roommate Lisa squealed with delight at the sight of the decorated hall. "This is like something out of a movie. I can't believe I get to be part of this." The ranch's chef had outdone himself with the Christmas Eve buffet. Stations throughout the hall offered everything from traditional turkey and ham to international cuisines representing the diverse backgrounds of the guests. Children from the shelter mingled with my friends' children, all of them wide-eyed at the chocolate fountain and gingerbread village display. At 6:30, Jackson texted, "Just parked. Amelia is literally bouncing with excitement." When they walked in, I immediately liked my future sister-in-law. Amelia had a warm smile and gave me a genuine hug. "This is incredible," she gushed, looking around. "Jackson told me your ranch was amazing, but this exceeds all expectations." My brother hugged me tightly. "You really did it, Q," he whispered. "This is spectacular." I was introducing them to some of the other guests when I spotted them. My parents standing awkwardly just inside the entrance, my mother clutching her purse like a shield, my father scanning the room with his critical gaze. Taking a deep breath, I excused myself and walked over to greet them. "Mom, Dad, I'm glad you could make it. Josephine insisted we see what all the fuss was about," my mother said stiffly. "We can only stay a short while." I nodded, refusing to let her diminish the moment. "Well, you're welcome for as long as you'd like to stay. There's plenty of food, and the main program starts in about 30 minutes. My father looked around, his expression unreadable. "You've certainly gone to considerable expense." The ranch is doing very well, I replied simply. Sharing that success seemed appropriate for Christmas. I showed them to a table where some extended family members were already seated, then returned to my hosting duties. Throughout the evening, I was aware of my parents watching everything. My mother's pinched expression when she saw the Shelter families dining alongside business associates. My father's raised eyebrows at the professional musicians performing Christmas carols. The evening progressed with gift exchanges, musical performances, and storytelling. Children from the shelters performed a spontaneous Christmas pageant that left many guests wiping away tears. Near the end of the evening, I noticed my father standing alone by one of the large windows overlooking the illuminated ranch grounds. I joined him, standing silently for a moment. "You built all this," he said finally, his voice quiet. "When you bought this place, I was sure you were making a terrible mistake." "I know you were. I was wrong." The words seemed to cost him considerable effort. "What you've created here is remarkable." Before I could respond, my mother approached. "We should be going, Thomas. It's getting late." "Actually," my father said, surprising us both, "I'd like to stay for the rest of the program, and Querida mentioned there are rooms available if guests want to stay overnight." My mother's face registered shock. "Stay overnight here? Why not? Many of the family are staying. We could join everyone for breakfast in the morning." The moment hung suspended between us, years of judgment and disappointment balanced against the possibility of something new. "There's a lovely guest suite in the main house," I offered. "It's private but close to everything." My mother looked between us, clearly torn between her pride and the desire not to be left out of the family gathering that had clearly shifted to my ranch. "I didn't bring anything to sleep in," she finally said, a small concession. "We have everything you might need," I assured her. Later that night, after showing my parents to their suite, I found Jackson and Amelia by one of the fireplaces. "Did I just see Mom and Dad taking overnight bags to a guest room?" Jackson asked, incredulously. "Apparently they're staying for Christmas morning." "Wow, that's unexpected," Amelia smiled. "Maybe this is the beginning of something new for your family." I wasn't naive enough to believe one magical Christmas could heal decades of complicated family dynamics. But watching my father actually laughing with Uncle Jim later that evening, seeing my mother reluctantly admiring the Christmas decorations she had initially criticized, I allowed myself to hope that perhaps we had turned a corner. The next morning, children's excited voices echoed throughout the ranch as they discovered filled stockings and presents. The main hall transformed for a lavish Christmas brunch, where Shelter families dined alongside my relatives and friends. My father found me as I was checking on the kitchen preparations for Christmas dinner. "Your mother and I have been talking," he said, his voice unusually hesitant. I braced myself. "We owe you an apology, querida. Not just for excluding you from our Christmas plans, but for many things over the years." The words I had waited decades to hear nearly took my breath away. "You took a different path than we wanted for you," he continued. "We were so sure we knew what was best that we couldn't see the extraordinary things you were accomplishing." Later that day, as everyone gathered for Christmas dinner, I looked around the table at the unlikely community that had formed in this place. Wealthy business associates engaged in conversation with families who had been homeless just months before. My stiff, proper mother helping a small child cut his turkey. My father deep in conversation with my ranch manager about sustainable grazing practices. Not everything was magically resolved. My mother still made a few critical comments about my hair and clothing choices. Old habits die hard. But something fundamental had shifted. The Christmas celebration at Sunset Ridge Ranch made the regional news. Articles featured photos of the beautifully decorated ranch and highlighted the inclusion of the Shelter families. Several business contacts reached out afterward about hosting their own charitable events at the property. In the quiet days after Christmas, as the ranch returned to its normal operations, I had time to reflect on everything that had happened. The painful exclusion that had triggered this entire sequence of events now seemed like a blessing in disguise. For years, I had measured my worth by my parents' approval always coming up short. Creating the Christmas celebration had initially been an act of defiance, but it had evolved into something far more meaningful. I had built not just a successful business, but a place where genuine community could form, where people from vastly different circumstances could connect and belong. My relationship with my parents entered a new phase. The lifetime patterns of criticism and disappointment wouldn't disappear overnight, but boundaries had been established. I would no longer accept being an afterthought in their lives. They could choose to be part of my world on mutually respectful terms, or they could maintain their distance. Surprisingly, they chose to try. My father called in January to ask about bringing some university colleagues to tour the ranch. My mother suggested we have lunch monthly, a small but significant olive branch. Jackson and Amelia became regular visitors. "Your Christmas miracle seems to be having lasting effects," my brother observed during one visit. "Dad actually bragged about you to his department chair last week." The most meaningful outcome, however, was my decision to make the Christmas celebration an annual tradition, expanding to include more families in need each year. The ranch would become known not just as a luxury destination, but as a place of genuine welcome and community support. Being excluded from my family's Christmas had forced me to create my own tradition. In doing so, I discovered that the approval I had sought for so long mattered far less than I'd thought. What mattered was creating a life and a community aligned with my own values. As I finalized plans for next year's celebration, already noting improvements and new ideas, I realized that the greatest gift from this experience was freedom. Freedom from the constant need for validation. Freedom to define success on my own terms. Freedom to create traditions that reflected who I truly was. The hurt of being excluded had transformed into the joy of creating inclusion for others. In healing myself, I had created something healing for others as well, and that was worth more than any approval I had ever sought. Have you ever turned a painful rejection into something positive? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences about finding your own path. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message of creating your own traditions and happiness, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the greatest gifts come from our deepest disappointments.